Okay. Good morning, bonjour. I'm here today with my Ottawa, Ontario Liberal Caucus colleagues, Lucille Collard, MPP for Ottawa Vanier, and Stephen Blais, MPP for Orléans. We're here today to call on the Ford government to review Ontario's homelessness prevention program and to give the City of Ottawa its fair share and adequate funding to tackle the housing and homelessness crisis in our city. The population of Toronto is only 3 times larger than Ottawa, yet it is receiving 60 times more the funding. 60 times. It's unacceptable that Toronto received over $40 million for the homelessness prevention program, while Ottawa only received $845,000. This insufficient funding will force the city to cancel 54 supportive housing units that were expected to come online in the next 18 months. It will also severely compromise our 10-year homelessness plan in the City of Ottawa. And that plan is to build somewhere between 570 and 850 new affordable housing options in our city. Once again, Doug Ford is abandoning the City of Ottawa and its residents. Encore une fois, Doug Ford abandonne la ville d'Ottawa et ses résidents. Le gouvernement Ford doit répondre à la crise du logement à Ottawa et soutenir les personnes les plus vulnérables de notre communauté. Et maintenant, je demande au député Stephen Blais de prendre la parole.
Bien, merci, John. C'est clair que le gouvernement de M. Ford respecte pas la ville d'Ottawa et les citoyens qui habitent dans la capitale nationale. Encore, on voit que on veut que le gouvernement d'Ontario offre presque aucun argent à la ville d'Ottawa quand il offre des millions et des millions à Toronto et les autres municipalités partout en Ontario. Once again, we're seeing the neglect that the Ford government shows to the City of Ottawa and the National Capital Region, whether it was the Derecho windstorms that devastated houses and farms across Cumberland and Navan and Carlsbad Springs that received no disaster assistance relief, whether it's during the convoy occupation that shut down downtown Ottawa for weeks on end and not only cost businesses and residents time and mental health, but cost the City of Ottawa tens of millions of dollars in additional policing costs, or whether it's with this most recent snub where Ottawa is not getting its fair share of investment in housing and homelessness. We in Ottawa have a housing and homelessness crisis like many other major cities across the province, and we're not asking for anything other than our fair share. If you divide by population, Ottawa should be getting something like $16 or $18 million, and the Ford government's offering Ottawa a little over $800,000. That's unacceptable. It's time for the Ford government to step up, to realize that Ottawa is part of Ontario. It is, in fact, the second largest city in Ontario, and it needs and deserves its fair share of investments, not just for housing and homelessness, but across all files. And we deserve the respect and attention that Toronto gets and other parts of the province get. Madame Collard.
Merci. Un plaisir de joindre mes collègues d'Ottawa ce matin pour cette importante demande au gouvernement. Et je veux parler particulièrement de ma circonscription d'Ottawa-Vanier, qui est une des plus vulnérables. Ottawa-Vanier is particularly vulnerable and most affected by the housing crisis. We have hundreds of people waiting for a roof. We have hundreds of people having to go to food banks, and food banks are actually not able to respond to the demand anymore. So imagine what it means for people not being able not only to make ends meet, but being able to have like a roof and to be able to feed their family. When we heard about the funding for Ottawa, everybody thought it was a mistake. Like, seriously, that's got to be a joke? There's some zeros missing? Like, what is this? And I do hope it's only a clerical mistake and that the government will correct that and provide its fair share of money for the homelessness program, which is very much needed in Ottawa. Make no mistake. It's, not the responsibility of the federal government. It is the responsibility of the province to subside this program. We need sustainable funding to be able to build sustainable housing projects and to be able to put people out of dangerous situation. There's too many people right now in Ottawa-Vanier sleeping in parks, despite the fact that the city has opened some respite centers for the homelessness. We still have a lot of people having to lay their head in a park or a public space. And this is creating a lot of anxiety for the people in Ottawa, and particularly in Ottawa-Vanier. Donc, je veux rassurer mes concitoyens, mes résidents d'Ottawa-Vanier, qu'on est ici à Queen's Park, on se bat pour vous, et j'espère que le gouvernement va écouter, va comprendre les besoins d'Ottawa-Vanier, et va corriger ce qui, selon toute évidence, doit être une erreur. Donc, merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Well, I think there's a letter. There's a letter last week, and it was just very clear from that letter. I mean, I think if you look at it, I think everybody in Ottawa was shocked when they saw $145,000, and like Lucille said, it's like, what did they drop a zero, or a few zeros, right? I mean, if they added a zero, they get halfway there, to where they need to be, and so I think it really shocked people. And so it wasn't just the mayor of Ottawa, just like community housing, people, organizations that deal with homelessness in Ottawa, they're all upset and they're concerned because it really undermines our plans. And I think, so it's, I haven't just talked to the mayor, just a number of other people. It's not a political or partisan thing. It's just simply, it's going to mess up the city's plan. And it's a great concern.
Have you seen the breakdown of this $202 million?
No, I have. I haven't seen the breakdown. Actually, I actually kind of said to the minister the other day, he didn't give me an answer. I said, "Did you actually look at the breakdown?" I haven't looked at it yet. I haven't seen that. Did anybody look at that breakdown? Because whenever money's going out the door, somebody should be going "Hey, does this make sense? Does it?" So, is it a problem with the formula? Is it a problem with an input? You could have avoided that problem by checking it out, and because it is stark, right, when you think about it, and there's no, rationale that's been put out for that being the way that it is, other than saying we have this new formula and this formula counts for these things. Well, Ottawa's the second largest city in Ontario. It is an interesting question though, because it'd be interesting to compare it to other cities.
I saw the number for housing ministers. Writing.
Yeah, actually, I just want to say that I actually came across an article, and I can provide it to you, but there was a pie chart that showed what every municipality were getting, and Ottawa is getting the slightest in percentage in terms of increase, right? It's nothing. It's like dismissible. So there's obviously something very wrong there, given the needs in Ottawa.
I think the housing minister's riding is getting $3 million or something, three or four times.
Well,
okay, they're getting 3 times.
No, it's just disproportionate. It's irrational. It needs to be fixed. Seriously.
Because this number came out with some fanfare. People, the municipalities were happy of the $202 million. Initially, when we at the budget day, but it seems like
take a whack out of there.
Well, yeah. Look, $200 million is a lot of money, and investing that in homelessness and affordability should, broad strokes across the province, pay dividends. But if it's not proportional, then the residents in Ottawa and other municipalities that aren't getting their fair share aren't going to see the same benefits. $840,000 in a city of 1 million people with a city budget north of $3 billion is a rounding error. It's a rounding error. And if in fact Brockville, which is 1/10 the size of Ottawa, is getting 4 times the amount of money, if that's true, that's just ridiculous. You need to have proportional investments to ensure that the benefit that you're trying to provide is equally felt across the province. Ottawa is not some federal district that is only the responsibility of Parliament Hill and the federal government. It is the second largest city in the province. The Metro Ottawa area is, I think, close to 1.5 million now. We need to see leadership from this government. Ottawa is part of Ontario.
Do you think the Premier has an odd relationship, it seems like, with Ottawa?
He doesn't have a relationship with Ottawa. You know, it took him 4 days to say anything when the capital, the core of our city, was being taken over. 4 days to say something. 2 weeks to take some action. It's like there is no government like, I think the MPPs, the Conservative MPPs in Ottawa, think that they represent Queen's Park in Ottawa, when they should be representing Ottawa at Queen's Park. And if they were doing that, you wouldn't see this. You wouldn't see what happened with the funding for the Direco and the funding, the emergency funding. We would have been declared emergencies in those areas that we were. The city would have been made whole. The city would have been made whole, or at least in part whole, for things like the police funding that came as a cost, with the occupation of Ottawa. It's like there's no representation from the government in the city of Ottawa. There's nobody in cabinet, but it's like nobody speaks up. Like if I can remember being part of a government, and when something was happening that was affecting our city that wasn't right, you got to speak up. It's just that simple, and none of those members are, and it's kind of a pathology, right? It's like it just keeps happening, and so, I mean, I did remember cheekily. I did actually post a map of Ontario that focused on Ottawa and sent it to the Premier. Said we're not a federal district. We are in Ontario. It is kind of far out there, but we're here.
J'ai peut-être une question en français sur un autre sujet. Je ne sais pas qui veut y répondre, mais sur la course au leadership, il y a de plus en plus de candidats qui se manifestent. Comment vous allez assurer une frontière étanche entre les affaires du caucus et tous les candidats qui vont faire des propositions de politique au cours des prochains mois? Puis comment ne pas assurer le chaos là, dans votre caucus?
Yes.
Yeah, how are you going to maintain
c'est pour tout, c'est maintenant des trois candidats potentiels de notre caucus, c'est en accord, travailler bien ensemble et partager l'information d'événements, etc. Je pense que le caucus ce n'est pas beaucoup de difficultés. Le problème, c'est comment on dit, comme la course de chefferie avance, c'est de compétition. Je pense ce n'est pas un grand problème pour notre caucus. C'est travailler bien ensemble tous les temps. C'est comme les anciennes courses de chefferie, c'est la même chose.
Yeah. In English as well, just for my colleagues.
Okay. Yeah, no, look, we work very well together. Right now, the caucus, the people who are considering joining the leadership race are all working very, very well together. They share information. Are you going to this thing? Are you going to that thing? And we give each other enough space. I mean, there will be some competition, but in the last leadership race, we had two candidates that were in caucus. They work very well together. It is a competition, but we're all in the same family. We're all one family. And what we want is for all of us to be successful. And I believe that all the leadership candidates that I know or who are interested in running for leadership see that. And so I'm actually impressed with how all the candidates are working together and being kind of collaborative and cooperative while being in this competition. So it'll be interesting, though. It's still... No, I think the thing is that we talk about it. Well, it's a very small group. Well, we talk about it. We talk about it. So we don't. There's no pas un éléphant dans la salle, right? There's no elephants in the room. Like, we actually just say, here's this thing, or I'm not happy about, That's the advantage of a small caucus. There's enough of us. If you do that in a caucus with 80 and you have those frank discussions, you might be there for a couple of days, right? Because everybody's got something to say. But they're really, really, all of our caucus work very well together. And it's not always easy in this kind of environment. And all the leadership candidates, continue to do the same. And so we're lucky. It doesn't always work out that way. So it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be things that happen from time to time. The most important thing is we talk about it, we talk to each other, we trust each other, and we're open and frank with each other. And we find resolutions to things that aren't working.
Lucille, est-ce que
Yeah.
vous avez quelque chose à ajouter là-dessus? Comment vous envisagez les prochains mois en tant que petit caucus et votre rôle de député?
Bien, jusqu'à date, comme John a dit, notre caucus est très uni. On travaille bien ensemble. Les trois membres du caucus qui explorent la possibilité d'être le chef travaillent ensemble. Et ces trois sont des leaders déjà. On a Dr. Shamji, une leader dans le coin du santé. Stephanie, une leader avec les finances. Et Ted, une leader avec, comment tu dis, mining et l'énergie. Et donc, il offre des points de vue et des options différents les membres de notre parti. Ils sont très honnêtes. Et il travaille avec beaucoup de passion. Et on n'a pas eu beaucoup de problèmes jusqu'à date. Et comme Jean a dit, quand il y a comme une question ou peut-être une situation qui peut poser un problème, on a une discussion honnête et concrète dans le caucus pour offrir à tout le monde une option de l'expression de leur point de vue et discuter comment on peut aller en avant et avoir une leadership avec beaucoup d'énergie, avec beaucoup d'options politiques et pour engager les Ontariens dans chaque coin de la province.
Je veux juste ajouter peut-être comme chef parlementaire, évidemment, il y a un rôle accru pour s'assurer qu'on continue d'être aussi efficace comme caucus. Hein, on était 8, on couvrait beaucoup. Déjà à 8, on en avait beaucoup dans nos assiettes. Maintenant, ils vont peut-être, ceux qui sont dans la course, être un peu moins disponibles en chambre. Puis c'est correct parce que justement, comme John l'a dit, comme Stephen l'a dit, on en parle, puis on va s'assurer qu'on est aussi efficace comme caucus, puis qu'on couvre les gens qui ont besoin d'être couverts. Donc,
Puis est-ce que les gens qui sont au sein du caucus ont un avantage par rapport aux candidats qui ne sont pas au sein du caucus dans cette course-là?
Je pense pas nécessairement. Je pense que c'est une question de circonstances. Puis on équilibre ça. Puis on s'arrange pour que ça soit équitable pour tout le monde. Ils sont membres du caucus, ils sont membres du caucus. On ne va pas leur enlever ça. Ça fait partie de leur profil de leader là, qu'ils présentent, mais on essaie d'être aussi équitable que possible envers tout le monde. Puis la communication, elle est très importante.
Le travail n'est pas seulement à Queen's Park, c'est le travail très important dans les quatre coins de l'Ontario, le 124 circonscriptions pour bâtiment, notre parti, les membership, les fonds, comment on dit, le brand. Yeah, c'est très, c'est n'est pas une, comment on dit, deal breaker. Yeah.
Okay. Merci. Thank you.